Hello everyone, this is DZ3, and welcome to my S+ rank run of Azure Striker Gunvolt 2's EX stages. This set of 16 stages is accessible through the game's Score Attack menu after completing the main story. Originally, they were sold as DLC for the 3DS version of the game, with subsequent releases including them by default. The EX stages are highly remixed variants of the main story stages, with the level geometry and enemy placement dramatically altered to the point that there's barely a resemblance to their progenitors. Relative to the Gauntlet stages in GV1, where it was just a matter of adding hazards and enemies, these stages take a far more involved approach to creating brutal challenges. Several of GV2's more obscure mechanics are spotlit, and optimizing your scores involves understanding and applying said mechanics to overcome the sometimes disturbingly inventive use of stage gimmicks that the level designers throw your way. Seeing as how these are Score Attack stages, naturally, you're locked to Score Attack rules. For Gunvolt, this means that he only has access to Cerberus with 3 tags, with his skills comprising Dragon Sphere, Crash Bolt, Astrosphere, and Galvanic Patch. The designers lean into these stipulations, constructing puzzles tailored to Gunvolt's default setup. The sometimes overly spacious rooms of the main stages are smartly truncated, and packed with a greater density of enemies, keeping the action constant despite the lack of equipment to augment Gunvolt's mobility and damage output. On the other hand, Copen is merely locked to flying around without subroutines. His repertoire of EX weapons is untouched, so his gameplay style isn't nearly as impacted. Copen's guard counter mechanic is where the EX stages differentiate themselves greatly. Unlike the somewhat abstract setups possible in the main game, here, guard counters, henceforth referred to as GCEXs, are given special consideration. Enemy formations are deliberately contrived so as to invite curiosity, intelligently goading players into discovering the meaning of why certain foes are oddly clustered together. For boss fights, 6 of Eden's adepts are supplanted by the Sumeragi originals from GV1, many of which receive meaningful changes to their movesets. Copen getting an opportunity to fight them is quite novel and intriguing, with the differences between his combat strategies and Gunvolt's being a particular point of interest. Retooled versions of Zonda, Gunvolt, and Copen serve as the remaining 3 bosses. With the preamble finished, I'll be going in list order, alternating between Gunvolt and Copen. Let's get started with Gunvolt's run of the EX sewers. This stage acts as a perfect canvas to illustrate many of the advanced mechanics you'll see throughout this run. Crash Bolt's utility is immediately obvious. Using it to obliterate enemies in vertical formations, be they natural or of your own creation, is a fast ticket to big kudos gains. It's also capable of comboing with Gunvolt's darts, which in turn can be chained into a standard flash field kill, making for some unusual setups. Dragon Sphere is the more unwieldy of the 2 skills, asking for greater adroitness in its use, but providing greater versatility in return. Its primary function is to supplement Gunvolt's tags, granting flexibility for the purpose of getting 4 strikes and above. Clustering enemies into corners with rapid shocks and then unleashing the sphere is a fantastic way of leveraging its potential. Like Crash Bolt, it's also capable of piercing otherwise invulnerable enemies like brush saws, along with frying the few unfortunate souls that happen to be imprisoned behind walls for some inexplicable reason. The upcoming enemy gauntlet contains the first of a few blemishes on this particular run. For whatever reason, I settled on a basic double against the 2 floaters. It'd be one thing if I attempted to incorporate airstrikes and failed, but the issue is that I didn't even try at all. I suppose that's one consequence of commentating over footage that's damn near 3 years old. This part was recorded in the late 2023, early 2024 timeframe. Part 2 and onward are all 2025 recordings, so you'll see a greater emphasis on airstrikes and score optimization there. While I could have redone these stages, I figured that I'd leave the recordings as is, serving as a time capsule of sorts. One important aspect of planning your route through these stages is how you allot your skill usage. On the surface, it might seem obvious to always alternate between Dragon Sphere and Crash Bolt to remove their cooldown time as a factor, but researching how each enemy group fares against each skill is a must. After finishing this timing puzzle with the brush saw, you might be tempted to crash bolt the 3 Eden soldiers. However, it's better to bully the blue man group into the corner while Dragon Sphere recharges, leaving Crash Bolt free to decimate the triad of shield drones shortly thereafter. For those who may be confused about the upcoming triple, know that the horizontal range of Gunvolt's darts and electricity exceeds that of the camera's view, letting me include an off-screen catcher in the combo. Dragon Sphere on the 2 Eden pawns near the checkpoint is the correct play, but I can't help but wonder if I could have tagged and shocked them for some extra kudos. Let's discuss a key blunder Inti made with these levels. Checkpoints don't work. That's right. The levels with the most taxing combos and movement demand that you run through them in their entirety every time you want to practice a given section. The aggravation induced by the non-functional system is quite palpable during this falling segment. 555 kudos is the reward for avoiding all of the cyclones. Additionally, knowing where and when to deploy the flash field to delay Gunvolt's descent while the cyclones fade is critical for getting lucrative crash bolt kills. Because of the aforementioned checkpoint silliness, this took an eon to research and overcome. Lastly, I'll detail this more during the Isle of Dreams, but enemies killed by stage hazards count toward combos so long as they're actively being damaged by Gunvolt or Copen in some way at the time of their demise. With that done, crash bolt the hexapile and you're good to go. As usual, Merak's big punches are the predominant worry when fighting him. This segment was recorded long before I discovered that you can avoid the punches by standing in the middle of the arena and performing a well-timed jump. The fallback is to quickly assess Merak's sprite as he throws the punches. If he uses his back fist first, the punch will materialize on the same side as Merak. If he uses his front fist first, the punch will come from the opposite side. Lazy Laser sees a devious change in the form of an extra laser, but it's only really an issue if you don't know how to manipulate it, which, I didn't. See, what you're supposed to do is jump upward during the 4th laser to bait it into shooting horizontally, leaving a wide berth for Gunvolt to safely dodge the 5th laser. My genius brain decided to never actually look into the behavior of the attack, instead having poor Gunvolt receive an involuntary haircut. Fortune was on my side, so I managed to escape and strike Merak with a crash bolt, ending the fight. Perhaps I'll revisit this stage someday. From the knowledge and skill I've gained since this first recording, I can definitely get a score of 2.5 million. Alright, before getting into anything gameplay related, I need someone to explain to me the lore ramifications of the 5 Eden soldiers trapped above the ceiling. What does it mean? Why are they there? What purpose do they serve in life? I know that the grunts aren't the brightest bunch. Gunvolt has to plead with them during his story to try and avoid unnecessary slaughter. But even so, those 5 seem, shall we say, minimally exceptional. In gameplay terms, their existence is easy to define. An aphorism to follow when playing as Copen is to always make a beeline toward any enemies that you can't lock onto, provided that they're reasonably nearby, and kill them first. The 5 soldier sacrifice instantly catapults your air combo multiplier to its highest value, and it's at the beginning of the segment. Convenient. If the lack of air strikes was a stain on the last stage, then my refusal to use Stellar Spark is the equivalent here. Gunvolt 2 aficionados already know where I'm going with this. Stellar Spark is a phenomenal weapon. When tackling a chain of enemies that are spaced sufficiently apart, its weapon energy efficiency puts Hailstorm Blade to shame. Against enemies who are resistant to Stellar Spark's effects, like punch golems, it's still preferable to Twin Tail Bunkers since it allows you to mash Copen's shots and extract extra kudos. As long as you deplete an enemy's HP while the satellite is shocking them, it'll count as an aerial EX. I'll be harnessing Stellar Spark far more often during the later stages, but I figured I should give it a bit of mention right now. Twin-tail bunkers is quite handy when faced with brush saws or imprisoned enemies, saving both ammo and time by locking onto an available enemy while using the main drills to target another. It's this function that allows it to perform decently as a GCEX weapon, but that's jumping ahead a bit. The lengthy recovery animation can be trimmed by switching to another weapon, firing it, and then switching back, but I don't make use of that here. Copen's falling segment offers the same 555 kudos bonus for slithering your way through without getting snatched up. It's also home to a wonderfully slick maneuver. The one and only GCEX in this entire level features a conspicuous sprinkler with 3 shield drones hovering above it. The solution is to tag the sprinkler, wait for it to trigger Copen's shield, then press up, dash, and your EX weapon button simultaneously. If done correctly, Copen will rebound between the walls as the drills perforate the drones. Meanwhile, the homing projectiles will ice the sprinkler. The rest of the fall comes down to memorization of floater placements. The cyclones are your only real visual cue to work with. Unfortunately, tedious repetition is the only way to know exactly when to bullet dash. It's worth learning because each locked kill grants 50 extra kudos relative to just casually slashing the floaters on your way down. Copen has a far easier time contending with Merak because, surprise surprise, flight is overpowered. Both of Merak's punch types were upgraded to track your character's vertical position, but that means little when Copen can preemptively fly to the top of the screen and drop down before the big punch even remotely has a chance to make contact. The actual issue in this fight is ensuring that you don't take contact damage when tagging Merak from behind. There's just enough space at the edge of the screen to jump up and bullet dash into him, but it takes a bit of getting used to. This tactic is also reliable for evading Lazy Laser. Unlike Gunvolt, Copen should start at the side opposing Merak and slowly shuffle toward him. Aside from that, rolling forward off Merak is the best way to deal with any occasions where he deigns to exert some effort and attempts to ram his fancy gaming chair into Copen directly. Altogether, the Adept Slayer walks away with a decisive victory over Gunvolt regarding the ease of the battle. The EX data facility houses Gunvolt's densest challenge. This stage is bizarrely short, but it's filled to the brim with odd enemy formations, all of which demand stringent execution. The restrictive time limit means that you have little leeway for Gunvolt's usual methodical style. Instead, you're forced to be selective with where you apply greater focus on score optimization, with most combos favoring a blitz approach. Practicing this stage takes ages. The majority of your targets are bombs and curse scripts, which self-destruct, so it's difficult to do mock drills. None of the tricks here are simple. Every minute detail has the potential to trip you up and end a run. Skimming shots over ledges to barely tag certain enemies is a horribly precise but necessary evil. There's one instance of it at the start of the stage, and another right here, where I misplace my shot and quickly double back to take another crack at it. The payoff is big, resulting in a 5-strike. Waiting for Dragon Sphere to recharge prior to this combo makes it considerably easier, but I had to ensure that my movement throughout the stage was crisp enough to accommodate this and other instances of loitering. The 4-strike preceding the second checkpoint is devilish with how exact you have to be. It took an age to wrap my brain around that maneuver. This climb is rather engaging. Dropping the grenade launcher down next to the roll cannons by momentarily dispelling the red platform is a novel concept. Above that, tagging the floaters for a triple demands careful flash field usage to avoid flubbing the climb and falling through a red platform yourself. The third combo is a bit prolonged, featuring dart spam to get 2 skill finishes with Crash Bolt. It's trickier than it may appear. If you jump slightly too high while climbing up, you'll spawn the curse script early and end up taking damage. In hindsight, it's definitely possible to get more airstrikes here, but alas. Surprisingly, Inti managed to take a mundane enemy room and infuse it with some remarkably clever design. The first few floaters are nothing, but the 2 pairs at the end can be eliminated by a combo of airstrikes and a single dragon sphere persisting for long enough to assail 2 floaters, rather than just 1. Aside from memorizing enemy placement, the principal point of knowledge that'll help you navigate this last bit is that you can place Gunvolt over bombs that are in the process of manifesting without getting hit. Pop Crash Bolt right above the sea of impending bombs and watch your kudos soar sky high. The award for Most Improved Boss handily goes to Carrera, who graduates from being an absolute joke to a proper threat, at least for Gunvolt. It's amazing what adding some outwardly innocuous projectiles does to an otherwise unassuming attack. There's seemingly no cue to indicate which fist Carrera will send down first, and with the scrap providing area denial, this becomes seriously troublesome. After lots of research, I happened upon the not-so-elegant solution of hovering above the arena by mashing wall jumps with the flash field, where Carrera's projectiles despawn before they can contact Gunvolt. Conveniently, this method also allows for uninterrupted offense, saving an appreciable amount of time, which helps attenuate some of the pressure during the stage. Quasar Collapse is heavily modified here. The Morph Moth spiraling debris is the primary problem. The key to survival is rhythmically using the flash field, holding it long enough to protect Gunvolt as the debris cycles. Spamming the flash field does no good. You'll overheat before the debris dissipates. Attempting a Crash Bolt finish is needlessly risky compared to using Astrosphere, but for whatever reason, I have a peculiar aversion to using the cut-in skills unless they're necessary or more stylish. Do as I say, not as I do. Copen's run of the EX data facility is defined entirely by an absolutely disgusting GCEX that the designers maliciously placed right before the end of the stage, ensuring the maximum possible time wasted during each inevitable failure. That's not to say that the trek through the level itself is simple, but when you're repeatedly sent packing to the start by the GCEX, the journey there ends up feeling monotonous. Hailstorm Blade is your workhorse here. Its peerless speed is conducive to slicing apart the rapidly spawning enemies. The Pac-Man sector presents an interesting challenge. You have the choice of either sniping a curse script with a wall-piercing weapon, or taking the action movie approach and running toward impending doom to defuse the situation, with the latter solution providing 50 extra kudos for your exertion. I hope you enjoyed that rare cameo from Vantage Raid. Its specialized targeting sometimes comes in handy to avoid collateral damage. Since things are mostly straightforward between here and the end, let's talk about the 2 GCEX opportunities present in the stage. The first one involves a sprinkler glued to a ceiling. In a stunning achievement, the level designers managed to incorporate Copen's reload crush as a critical component of the combo. Specifically, the extra falling speed gained during a reload crush is essential for catching the 2 floaters below the sprinkler with Hailstorm Blade. Remember, just like with Gunvolt's combos, the timer that governs if a GCEX chain continues is somewhat generous. Kills don't need to be simultaneous, but you can't dally either. Repeatedly tagging the top floater to align it with the one below is a bit of a time sink, but it's worth the investment. The second GCEX is a pure nightmare. By an extreme margin, it's the most absurd source of kudos in GV2, worth roughly 3,500 if executed properly. The problem is just that, executing it properly. I searched tirelessly for a light at the end of the tunnel, desperately trying to find any consistency, but my efforts were mostly in vain. The exact movement routine I employ was designed to keep Copen centered between the upper and lower bombs. but even that seemed to be little more than a placebo effect. I only ever aced the maneuver twice during all my run attempts, and I scarcely got it right during practice too. I sincerely hope there's some glaringly obvious tactical error I made in my approach, because otherwise I'm going to classify this GCEX under cruel and unusual punishment. Now that I think about it, some functional checkpoints to practice with would have been a welcome addition. No, I'm not bitter. Why do you ask? For the second time in a row, Copen gets to relax a bit against a boss that Gunvolt struggles with. This time, however, it's primarily because someone at Inti Crates dared to show a shred of mercy toward players, ostensibly as an apology for the circus directly preceding the boss fight. Only one volley of projectiles is unleashed during Binding Might, whereas Gunvolt suffers too. As a consequence, Copen can enjoy some leisurely hovering while Carrera spends his time doing the equivalent of attempting to punch a pigeon. Quasar Collapse puts Copen in a perplexing scenario. His shield automatically stifles incoming debris, but the barrier's activation drags him closer to the abyss. Disabling the shield will only get you pelted with garbage like a poorly performing comedian. So then, what's the solution? It's to apply the NFL linebacker strategy of repeatedly bashing your head into a wall. Bullet dashing forward above Carrera and cracking Copen's skull ad nauseum is hilariously effective. It's a surefire way to remain spotless while Carrera plays around with the laws of physics. But the resulting case of CTE certainly won't help quell Copen's hatred of adepts.